With the Vasily Podkolzin trade leaving fans divided, we take a look at the hidden and not so hidden truths as to why this trade happened. And two other Canucks prospects could be potential trade bait. We'll be breaking down all of that in this episode of Canucks Digest. But first, we know that trade yesterday might have left you guys a little anxious, a little stressed out. So for that, we have a special offer just for you guys, and I'm going to let Mark take it from here.
Are you trying to kick a bad habit to the curb? If so, you need to check out Fume. Have you heard that flavored air category is becoming the leading alternative to vaping and smoking? It's a whole new movement towards better habits led by today's sponsor of this video, Fume. Flavored air isn't like vaping. If vapor was compared to sticky sodas, Fume cores are closer to herbal teas. Fume has a lot of delicious flavors to choose from, like crisp mint, orange vanilla. With flavored air, you can satisfy your oral fixation through a passive diffusion system that utilizes no electronics, vapors, or combustion. Fume has been backed by doctors in the US, and the company continues to invest in third-party studies to ensure the safety of their products. My favorite thing about Fume is the delicious flavor cores, especially the crisp mint, that you can use anywhere, at home, work, on the go, anywhere you want to use this you can. Fume has served over 300,000 customers, and you can be the next success story. Slip it on to the mouthpiece for a warmer, soother feel. It's also chewable for those who love to fidget, and it's also reusable. Head to tryfume.com, that's tryfum.com, and use code DIGEST or the QR code on the screen right now to get your free Fume topper when you order your first journey pack today.
Thanks for that, Mark. And with that, let's hop into the first topic of the day, which is the truth on Podkolzin trade. Now, if you didn't see our video yesterday or didn't see on social media yesterday, Vasily Podkolzin was traded to the Edmonton Oilers for a 2025 fourth round pick. A lot of people are upset about just the trade in general and about the value that they got back for him, especially when considering he was a first round pick back in 2019 from Jim Benning. But when you look at their draft picks like Mark covered yesterday, now in 2025, they have a first, a second, two in the fourth, a fifth, sixth, and seventh round pick, where this Vancouver team has been able to find some gems in the later rounds under the Patrik Allvin era. He's not really too focused on trying to go out and get those marquee early round guys that a lot of other teams are going for. He's more worried about trying to find those ones in the nitty gritty rounds like Melvin Fernstrom, like Anthony Romani. Well, we'll see how those guys will pan out as far as their potential and with Abbotsford and as well as on the international level. So it's going to be interesting to see what those guys do there. And another thing that has people very upset with the Vasily Podkolzin trade is that they did not give him a chance to bloom. He didn't reach his potential, and that they just wanted to see more of him. I know a lot of fans wanted to see him in the postseason, but when you look at his career stats, you could argue otherwise. He got his shot. He had 3 different shots in Vancouver, and they just did not pan out. It didn't lead to production. Even in those 79 games where he played only 26 points. Yes, it was on a very shaky and recovering Vancouver team during a rebuild era. That is very much understood. However, when he went down to Abbotsford, he didn't really put up production. When he had those splashes in Vancouver, he didn't put up production. It just proved to be another Benning bust, you could call it, as many of them have been proven, where Patrik Allvin is just trying to clean house and get rid of any remnants of that era and just move on to the next spot. And then if you look on his stats from last year, especially in 19 games, only 2 points, 2 assists, 20 shots, 7 takeaways, which was nice. Again, he is more of a physical winger. -4 rating, only 1049 in those 19 games. It's not exactly what you want to see out of a 6'1", 23-year-old that you drafted back in 2019, and as someone that you drafted in the first round, and they're not panning out the way that they have. So it is very much, I could have seen this coming where they could have moved on from him. There's a few other factors that could have led into that. We're going to get to those in a second. The first of which, however, being maybe that they just had too stacked of a roster to keep him. You look there in their active roster where on the wing, you have Brock Boeser, you have Connor Garland, you have Daniel Sprong, you have Kiefer Sherwood, you have Filip Hronek, who is definitely better than Podkolzin just because he has the experience. So you have all this availability here. Niels Hoglander as well. Danton Heinen, where these guys definitely are much better players than Podkolzin. They've had their chance in the NHL. They've proven why they belong in the NHL. And even when you look at their non-roster ones with those AHL guys, you have Josh Bloom, you have Ty Glover, you have Jonathan Lekkerimäki, you have Linus Karlsson as well, where these guys are much better players. They did get their playing experience and they made the most of their opportunities with Vancouver. I know Lekkerimäki, we haven't seen him jump up into Vancouver yet, but I think we're going to see him there very soon. He's going to make the most of it. But just based on the guys that they have in Abbotsford alone and their active roster, I don't think they just had any room. They already replaced him as far as guys that they needed to fill those holes and make sure that they weren't in the postseason just calling up AHL guys and expecting them to make those starts like we saw with Linus Karlsson and Niels Åman struggle with this past season. So it is going to be interesting to see what Vancouver does from here as far as draft picks and what they do with these draft picks that were made under the Benning era, or with these Benning busts as we could be calling them. It will be interesting what Patrik Allvin does as far as cleaning house, but let us know how you guys feel as far as the trade in general. What do you guys feel about it? And before we get any further, we're going to talk on some reasons some more reasons as to why this trade could be for the better rather than for the worse, like people are saying. The first of which being it freed up cap space. So now you can go out and get a guy like Nick Cousins, who is that agitator and is going to be that physical guy in the forward lineup, where Podkolzin was a bit more physical. So you can bring Nick Cousins in there to be that agitator, and you can bring him in on $1 million deal where they did free up $1 million worth of space. So if they freed up that space, now you can bring in a guy like Cousins, or go out and get another winger, or bring in a guy on the defense to bolster down the fourth defensive pairing and the third defensive pairing where it's Mark Giordano or Kevin Shattenkirk. There are options now available at Vancouver's disposal where they don't need to be tied down to making sure that these AHL guys or these prospects are just ready to make that jump to the NHL. Not everyone is ready to just make that jump like that, especially when Podkolzin has been one of those prospects who struggled when getting those opportunities in Vancouver. So I think it was a matter of just opportunities and production just were not meeting, and they had to move on. But one thing I do want to touch on that might be interesting as to why they did move on from him is something that we covered in a video about 3 weeks ago, and that was an interview that he did with a Russian outlet Match TV. And he had some comments on the team and on Andrei Kuzmenko, who was his former teammate and a close friend of his. So first was his comments on the team, where he says, I came to Vancouver at a time when the team was being rebuilt. 3 coaches changed, many factors played a role, and somewhere maybe I didn't show myself very well, but I know that I can play good hockey and I will play it. For this, I need a little more trust, a little more playing time, but I signed a new contract with the Canucks until 2026, the best I could get in this situation. Now I have one desire: to prepare well, return to Vancouver, and play good hockey. Now when we posted this video, we were saying that he was throwing the Canucks under the bus, especially when you go on to this Kubenko comments as well, where these are the demands of the new coach, Rick Tocchet. Kuzia didn't quite fit into the new style of play, but he was traded to Calgary, giving him what he needed. He got playing time, gained trust, and in Vancouver, the focus is now fast and powerful hockey. Everything is from defense, minimum mistakes. In some places, you need to play simpler. You just need to fulfill these demands, and apparently Kuzia didn't find the point of contact that Tocchet demanded. So with these comments, he was a bit more outspoken than a lot of other players were, and I don't think it was a chance of opportunity for him to disrespect the Canucks, but I did think he maybe didn't word it in the right way, where Vancouver front office maybe did not take it the right way or the way that he maybe intended, and they maybe saw it as a slight on them, where he was saying that Kuzia did not deserve to get traded as far as what they got for him and how he fit in this Tocchet system, and him saying that I haven't had a chance to prove myself. We've seen there in his stats, he's had chances to prove himself, he just hasn't made the most of those opportunities, and you can't constantly make that assessment on just the changing culture all the time. There has been some constants in his time there, and he just hasn't been able to adjust to it. So I don't think it was a matter of Vancouver not trusting in him or just giving up on him. I think it was just a matter of he has not met the standard that they have set for him, being a first round draft pick, and he just goes out and says things like this, and then it's no surprise that he found himself on the trade block and eventually traded. This was something that I was saying could have been a possibility back then, and I think it's something that it wasn't too much of a surprise. Again, the timing of it maybe was definitely a surprise, but I think with what he said, I did say there that Podkolzin could be on his way out by saying things like this, and it seems like that might have been a contributing factor to him being traded. Let us know what you guys think down below. Do you think it was a matter of his comments about him being just rostered out, or just his opportunity just not meeting production? Would love to hear what you guys think. And that's going to lead us into the second topic of the day, which is prospect trade bait. And we see here in a headline from Canucks Daily that the Canucks on the trade market, 3 players who developed into trade baits. And normally, this is from August 17th, so normally I would not pay this too much attention just because it just could be trade bait. We don't know for sure. However, when you look at the players involved, that's where it gets interesting. Vasily Podkolzin is on the list. We're not going to touch on that because he was traded, but him being on that list does make it interesting because he was on that list and did get traded. 2 other players on that list, Linus Karlsson and Aatu Räty. Linus Karlsson, 24, scored 60 points in 60 AHL games last year and was allowed to prove himself at the NHL level. Now he's fallen down the depth chart. There's a strong possibility that Patrik Allvin will try to grab an opportunity elsewhere. So again, Karlsson was great in the AHL, but if you can make an opportunity where he can just go somewhere and just do something better on his own and not affect the Canucks, and they can get a great return out of him, I think that'll be interesting to see if a team can have the belief in him that Vancouver once had, if that is the case here. But again, Karlsson made that jump to the NHL level last year. I know it was in the postseason, so it wasn't too much to give him an opportunity with, but I think it does make it very likely that he will either get more playing experience in Vancouver this season or be on the trade block, especially at age 24, when you want to see these guys make that jump around that age. And so if he's not ready, again, move on from him. It makes sense. The second of which being Aatu Räty. The Canucks acquired their former captain, Bo Horvat, had been steadily improving within the organization. He played well through the 2023-24 campaign, 52 points to show, but fell short in the big league call-up. Now 21, maybe the Canucks' most valuable tradable piece, given they don't want to part ways with Jonathan Leckernacki or Tom Willander. I don't know if Räty is going to be as much of a trade bait candidate as Karlsson would be. I think Karlsson was a very appealing trade bait candidate. I think he would be something that was very interesting because we saw what he was able to do last season in the postseason. Wasn't the greatest showing, but it wasn't the worst showing. He didn't make any great mistakes, but he didn't make anything splashy to make himself stand out. But Räty, I think, is on the cusp of having a very great season where he's continued to grow and grow and grow, and he's only going to get better, especially being at 21. So he's going to surpass Linus Karlsson's potential and his production in the AHL. That's no question about it. So it's just a matter of how he's going to jump to the NHL. So I think it does make him very appealing in that sense as far as trade bait. But again, if he's going to be one of those valuable players like Jonathan Leckernacki or Tom Willander, where this can be part of the future of the Canucks, definitely keep a guy like that on your roster. But Karlsson is a guy that they could potentially move on from. Let us know what you guys think. It was just a quick little thing that I thought would be interesting, especially when considering that Podkolzin was also on that list and did get traded. So it could be a foreshadowing of things to come. Let us know what you guys think as well. But speaking of what you guys think, that's going to lead us into comment of the day. And we see here in comment of the day from Danny Johns 9, Podkolzin would have had to clear waivers if sent to Abbotsford. He was 13 to 15 on the depth chart, so they were likely going to lose him on waivers because they couldn't afford to keep him in the press box. I definitely agree with this. This was something that Mark and I even talked about, and he even mentioned yesterday, I think, where it was just a matter of if they were going to come to waivers, he might not have even made that. So if you were able to, rather than just let him go for nothing, why not go and get something, even if it is a 4th round pick? And with the production he was putting up, maybe teams weren't as interested in giving up a first round pick or a 2nd round pick for him, considering what he was able to do being a 1st round pick himself. So that would have been interesting to see. But again, Podkolzin is gone. We're now on to the future of the Canucks and on to next season, which we can't wait for. Can't wait to bring you guys more updates throughout the offseason as the preseason hits us very soon next month. So stay tuned to Canucks Digest for that. Like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends. Let us know how we did down below. And thank you to Fume for sponsoring this video. That's going to do it for this episode of Canucks Digest. I've been your host, Griffin. Take care.